Do we want to wait a couple more minutes, maybe to see if Huni, somebody from Huni?
Yeah,
I think Hini will not be here. She's traveling.
Oh, is that Claudio?
Yeah, that's me. I joined
Alright.
earlier. Hi.
Hi. So I guess then we can go ahead. So on the agenda today that I sent out earlier, we are going to just talk about some updates on the action items. They're not really that many. And we want to have a discussion about the release of version 1. Also, we went back to introduce some features, especially the sort feature. We were looking at the mapping and we just wanted to bring some mapping discrepancies that we saw to everybody's attention. We wanted to have a brief discussion of the certificate for www.datamed.org. Ergen will talk about that, and then we'd like to get some updates from all team members. So for this release, we were supposed to get 6 new repositories, in addition to what we already have, and we've received 1 repository so far.
Yeah. I mean, basically, we've been dealing with the version 2 translation.
Right. So that's something that. Sorry, I forgot. Let me just go over who's in the room. I have Ruling, Todd, Divakar, Nina, Syed, Ergen, and Shaoling. And on the call, I have David, Jeff, Mariana, Nansu, Philippe, Ron, Trevor, Veve, and Claudio. Have I left out anybody? Okay, good. So go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh yeah, no, because we've been dealing with the version 2 and the new access and all the other stuff. So that's why the new repos are sort of at the tail end of that. I know that, like, for example, ICPSR as one of them is the transformation is completed, but that's sort of as when we finish the others, and that will be like another one that will come through. So.
Right. So actually,
But wait, there was the yeah. So this is okay. So the slide. So yeah, for addition of data for the new ones, are we going to test that on the UT Health server and then move it over, or how's that?
Yeah, so basically this is something that we did want to discuss. So we received 17 reindexed and 1 new repo from your team, and these have all been mapped to metadata version 2.0. And I guess since we currently have 23 existing repos, which have been mapped to version 1, we are expecting 6 more reindexed repositories, and we are expecting 5 new ones. Now, Ruling and Shaoling have started implementation, but it would take them at least 3 days to complete implementing these in the UI. And after that, we want to test test all the new features and existing functions on the UCSD server before we do the release. So at the minimum, the testing will take at least 2 or 3 days. So we had a meeting today morning and we discussed these issues, and we kind of thought there are 2 options. One is to release version 1, DataMed version 1 on June 30th, but just testing the new functionalities that we have implemented, but without incorporating the new and the re-indexed repositories as part of DataMed version 1. The other option would be to do the updating of the new and the re-indexed repositories, do the testing, and push back the release of DataMed version 1 by a week or 10 days. So do people have any suggestions? Because I don't think time-wise we will not be able to update the re-indexed repositories.
So Anu, we've been promising the June 30th release. So
right.
I think it's prudent to go ahead with what you've got, and then over the next week to 10 days, just update. It'll be a 1.1 or 1.2 and so on.
Well, but this gets to the question of the data updates, because they're going to keep on coming, right? So as, for example, some of the discussions started at the workshop, and some of the discussions with, for example, TCIA, because we're going to transition them to the data site feed. Once we have that completed, we'll need to slot that data in to replace the current TCIA data. So that's not really a new release, right? So that's why we have to figure out how to sort of shim the data release.
So you call it 1.0.1, just an indication that something has changed.
Right. But in terms of the procedure, right? That's what we have to then iron out, because this is going to be a continual thing that's happening. So,
perhaps on the website with the June 30th 1.0, there can be a note that on a continuing basis, data will be added and updated. And these will be reflected in additional releases. And you can say 1.01 and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the follow-on to that is the procedure on your end, because the issue is, and this might be a longer discussion, is if we add, so what requires a code change with the data source? So if a new data source with version 2 gets updated, right? So let's say we have a version 2 data source that comes in that already was there, but let's say it was updated, like the TCIA use case.
So
what is it on the code end that needs to be changed then? Because it's the same data source, it's the same sort of schema information. There might be some additional elements.
We need to update the field name in our source code.
For the additional fields, or for?
If the fields are the same, we just need to add the new one in the code.
So do you need to add the new ones?
The new fields, like access type, and the authentication, those are new fields.
Right. Those are new fields. But if a data, okay, because we need to figure out a way then to sort of determine if it has, right? Because let's say I send you an update of TCIA, and nothing really has changed. It's really just an update, so there's no new code, right?
If the mapping is the same one, we don't need to change our source code.
You don't need to.
Yeah, if the mapping is the same, we don't need to change that.
Okay.
So Jeff, when you're talking about updating of data source, you're talking about reindexing, right?
Yeah, because coming out of the workshop, there's going to be people providing DATs. The TCIA. We're already working with Martin Fenner and TCIA on getting the data through DataSite instead of through the current way that we're getting TCIA.
Mm-hmm.
And so there'll be there'll be updates of data where the mapping may not change. There may be somewhere, for example, if a data source updates, a new field comes in, then a new field suddenly shows up.
Well, do you need to even say anything?
Well, this is not what we say externally. I'm just trying. We need to sort of figure out what we're doing internally for that, because we're now sort of transitioning to more of a sort of it's not production, but it's a public prototype, right?
Well, again, for sake of transparency, somewhere in the heading or under news or under who we are or whatever, there can be a statement that says data will continually be updated. Please check frequently for either new releases or updates.
Right. We can definitely do that on the. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, and then for any real major change, then you can go to a numbering system, 1.1 or even 1.05, or however the degree of change is minor to major. In a graded way.
Yeah. That's the public information.
Yeah. I think it seems there is, for data matter, there is two things intertwined with each other. And one is the content, and the other is the software. And now it may make it difficult that we only have one version number that may not be distinguish the update for either one of that. So maybe there is think of a way that if you want to highlight the changes for either categories.
Yeah, I mean we can always add again on release notes and things like that, we can always have the last time a data set was sort of reindexed, and we can do that by a minor version number, or even a sort of a version of a minor version number.
There could also be a weekly announcement, a Monday morning announcement telling users X, Y, and Z has been updated. Give a reference or whatever, but just sort of a weekly summary of the updates or new additions.
Yeah, I just have a question regarding the interaction between changes to the data transformation and data representation, and how this impact the search engine or search capability or the interface. Is there an impact, or can we, with the same code base, be reused with no needs for any changes, even though we change the underlying model?
So I think the answer there depends on what the change of the underlying model is, right?
Right. So in a way, this is what I wanted to gear to understand exactly.
Yeah, and that's sort of what my question was, right? In the sense of if we have minor changes, because as we're going through this process with these groups that we've now brought into the workshop, and their data gets refined, there'll be minor updates. And so if it's that the model, so that if a new field shows up, that has to be added to the model, then what we what we may, I mean, we can potentially have sort of a script that sort of checks what's there and what's new potentially, right? To alert when bringing in new data. And that's the one thing I can I can think of. Or again, this may be a longer sort of more developer related discussion that we want to take offline, because I don't want to use up all of the call for this, because I know there are also certificate questions and other things that need to be resolved.
Yeah, I would suggest over this next week you just a subgroup of the development team look at this, consider it, and then come back with a definitive recommendation. And I think the overriding concern is a sense of transparency. You want to have users know and understand what is going on with the data, that it is not necessarily static, and that there are constant changes that occur that include re-indexing to accommodate the repositories and their changes, and updating with regard to the metadata model.
Okay, I guess we can schedule a meeting maybe with Jeff and Ruling and Charlene, Syed, Ergen, and Burak. Anybody else?
Yuling from our side. I mean, yeah, the main question, yeah.
Okay.
I'd be interested too, yeah. Please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, who's that? I'm sorry.
Philippe.
Philippe, okay. So then I guess we still do the June 30th release, which means that we need to test the new functions as well as existing functions which are there in version 0.5. So for this, we really want to ask everybody's help. So we want to do the testing on the UCSD server, which is already publicly open. So what we would like to do is, by the end of the day today, we'll send out a list of functionalities that need to be tested, and maybe I will divide it between the different groups, and we would like to have the testing done and any feedback provided to us before we do the public release.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, once I can put a bunch of our students as well on this.
So Jeff, what I can do is I can generate a list, and maybe we can just discuss offline how to divide the list between the groups.
Yeah. I mean, how long is the list? I mean, is it?
I guess it's not super extensive, I would say.
Okay. Well, because I was just going to hand the list to a bunch of students and say, here, go at it.
So we can divide it. It's not like everybody has to test every functionality, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people here that probably can devote that time, 6 or 7, including myself, that can devote the time to do the testing. And if we can get a couple more, I think it's definitely feasible to do the testing, because we don't want to release anything without testing.
Okay, you need to give me the final thumbs up so that I can tell the communications people in the ads office to go ahead with the release.
Right. So Ron, we need to talk about that as well. I was hoping that we would get the communication that we want to put out so that we can run it through the executive committee.
Okay.
And you said that would be ready by...
The deadline is tomorrow.
Okay. So even if we get it tomorrow, then I guess I can communicate that to the exec through email, and they'll provide feedback. I mean, they're pretty prompt in getting back.
Yeah. Okay. I will pursue that.
All right. Thank you. So then I think we can probably table this for now, but Syed actually went in and looked at the mappings for repositories because he was trying to implement the sort function. And what we realized, I don't know how clear it is, but what we realized is that we still have mappings which look different across different repositories. For example, in some, the title is mapped as data item.title, and in some it's mapped as dataset.title. This doesn't really matter much when we are searching and displaying results, but for him to be able to implement the sort function, we need to have all the fields on which we want to do the sort being mapped identical.
Yep.
So that's probably just something that we could also discuss, maybe, Jeff, when we talk with you.
So that for the data set title, the PDB and DB gap and clinical trials, those are because those were the ones that were still flowing to you. And so clinical trials, I think I just sent you Ling, and so that should already be normalized in the new version.
Okay.
Bioproject I'll have to check because you should already have a new version of Bioproject, so I'm not sure why that.
Right. All of those which are in yellow are what were provided to us as new version, as being mapped to version 2.0.
Real quick. But for the not like author, they're not going to be. That's a field that's not very present.
So then, so
the question is and the same thing with date published. Some of the data sets don't have a date published.
So can we have that as being empty? Because then we can still sort.
Oh, okay. So you what do you want in it if it's empty?
Sorry, say that again?
If it's empty, what do you want in it?
Nothing. This is just allows us just to run the sorting function of Elasticsearch. We just need it. If it not exists in the mapping, the run function doesn't work.
Okay.
It's not like title, yeah.
Okay.
So even as long as we have it mapped, and then even if it's empty, it doesn't matter because we can still run the sort function.
Yeah. Okay, these are important things to know, and I think we had a discussion actually with Jeff offline about following the meeting last week about precisely documenting all these cases and testing for each of the transformation, have the outputs for one data set for each of the transformations so that we can review the output and just outline the best practice for annotation and document every single pattern for every single element in the model. That would be extremely useful for normalization. And then having your input as well to tell us this, if absent breaks, search at this point, this is what we need. I think that would help everyone in the group.
Yeah, and this, Philip, comes off the email thread too, where we were discussing sort of like a compliance tool.
Right.
Basically take
totally.
and pass them through a compliance checker. Which is something, we can definitely, now that the model is sort of stabilizing, that we can develop such a compliance checker to pull these things out.
Right. And the way that will allow possibly, because I don't know exactly how the search engine works, but to calibrate the optimal representation for some of the repositories, so that we make sure that the count in data sets that are available from DataMed match what is available from the primary source of data somehow, these kind of things, or indicated performance as we came across the issues.
So, Jeff, don't you have a mapping checker? I thought you.
Oh yeah. So what that does, that's a syntax checker, right? So as curators are developing the transformations, they can, and this is what I sent you earlier, Philippe, information on. You can basically put in data, you can put in the transformation, and it will generate the document. But this is one step past that, right? So we basically, to do the compliance checking, we need a stable model to generate the compliance specs, right? And so, with version 2, we're sort of getting to that more stable model, and so now we can start doing some of these additional tests.
Okay.
And that isn't just running it across one document, but we would want to run it across either, a random sample, because, you might be able to run it against all documents. It just depends on how long a compliance check will take.
It's really, to give an indication of, a qualitative indication about the content that is being generated, and possibly test the impact those representations have on DataMed search efficiency.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the other thing that that we discussed actually at the workshop was that you could start also assigning either a color code or a metal code, like bronze, silver, gold, platinum type thing, right, for the amount of metadata that is provided, right? So that
by a repository?
Yeah, by a repository, so that, for example, if a repository only provides the core of the core, right, they might get bronze, right? But then if someone adds information, some further information, sort of extends the information about the metadata, it provides a little richer metadata, you can start sliding up that scale. So that was some other discussions at the workshop, in terms of, how compliant are you, right?
Okay.
So this sheet is in.
I haven't put it up on GitHub yet. On Google yet, because I guess Syed was going to update it a little bit. So, but this, like I said, since we are not kind of pushing right now to do the sort function or put in the updated mapping, we can work over it after the release.
Yeah, no, if you can just send me the slides.
Okay.
So that, because I can give this to Yuling for her to just double check.
Okay.
On all those.
All right, thanks. I will do that. So, with the web certificate issue, we have been running across a security certificate issue for this particular website, with the address www.datamed.org. For datamed.org, without the www part, it's fine. But for the other one, the certificate is issued by biocaddy.org, but it has to be issued by datamed.org, and so it keeps saying that it's not a trusted site, which is going to create problems. So Claudia, can you please help us with this?
So I have to look at the configuration of the server, and as I said, there are two options. One of them is to get the SSL certificate, which is wildcard. The other one is trying to get around with the SNI support. This was discussion that I had about the email with Arjun. Mm-hmm. And I'm checking now to see what configuration Tony did in the past week, to see whether there is anything, maybe a typo or something that prevents it from working as it should be.
I mean, if you need to do can you also potentially do a redirect within Apache to do a
there is no redirect in Apache because Apache doesn't even see the request first. So there is a pound reverse proxy that gets the request.
Yeah.
That one terminates the SSL session, and that's what the issue is. Apache doesn't even see it yet.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's correct, because you have what, is it an Nginx proxy, or?
No, it's pound.
Okay.
It's basically terminate the session, deformatting the request, passing it to the IDS, and then it gets to Apache. So we are not even getting to Apache in the first place to get around this issue. It's a bit more complicated. So I'm looking to see exactly what the configuration currently is and what was specified there, and hopefully we'll get it done by the end of a day or two.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can get it done before the release. Although for now, whenever in all our release announcements and statements, we're going to say it's got to be datamet.org without the www.
Yeah.
But if somebody puts in www, we don't want to have any issues, right?
Yeah, I know. That's exactly the case.
Yeah. So if we can get it done before the public release, that would be great.
Yeah, we are trying to get this done as soon as possible.
Great, thanks. So also with we already talked about the release announcement. So Ron, once I hear back from you, I'll also share it with the co-development team.
Yeah, I just sent a note to Lisa Dunneback asking her to share it with you by tomorrow.
Okay.
She also needs from you she'd like to put in the announcement the link to the workshop.
So
the video cast.
Right, I heard back from Diana saying she needs to do a fair amount of editing.
Okay.
So it may not be ready before the end of this week. I wonder, would it be useful to just put a link to maybe the webinars that we had that was done by,
that might be the best way to do it. You can work that out with Lisa.
Okay. Let me email her and work that out because I think as far as the workshop, we may not be ready on time.
Okay. All right. And what I told her was that you would give me a thumbs up. You can do CC to her as well. That the release has actually taken place, and then she'll send out the release
announcement. All right. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think we have some time to actually discuss the ongoing work. So basically, I just want to briefly discuss the extra functionalities that we probably are going to be testing over the next 2 to 3 days. It would be some of the things would be, of course, we will get some extra repositories. No, we're not going to have extra repositories. So it's just going to be the 23 repositories. So we will just have to test spelling correction for in the UI, which is one of the additional features. We will have to test the breadcrumb, share search results, search history, generating user accounts, collections, and then allow the feature that allows users to select multiple repositories, to display all records from one repository, to select number of the results per page, and then to make sure that we have the grant information implemented, wherever it's available. And as far as I can see, that's about it. This is in addition to already existing functions. Was there anything else that I missed? So Jeff, do you have an update about the video?
Yeah, so the student was still working on that, so I'm going to, that's what happens with undergrad students. So I'm going to work on finishing that this week.
Okay.
So I'm going to take it off his hands and just get it done. It's taking him a long time, so. But this is going to be on the new, because we'll have the new logo, right? We have the new logo on the...
So, I don't know about... So the logo is whatever Claudio sent, which we currently have.
Okay.
And Lucilla said that's what we want to keep for now. And we might revert back to the previous logo depending on other factors.
Okay.
So presumably for the video, or, the video is kind of going to be really brief, right?
Yeah, it's brief, but it still has the pieces I have from the student are the old logo.
So did you want updated screenshots? If you let us know, I guess Nina can send you updated screenshots.
No, it's not the screenshots, it's really the movie bits, so that's the...
So did we send you that? No, right?
No. We generated them new.
Oh, okay. So if you need anything, any information or anything from us, just let us know. And we should be able to send it to you. So this video will be on our, it's going to be embedded in our website? Or is it, this video
Well, we can embed it in the BioCaddy website itself.
Okay.
And then, do we have, actually, does BioCaddy have a YouTube channel? I've never even checked.
Yes, we do. That's where all of the webinars and all are posted.
Because we can post it there as well then.
Okay. So I know Elizabeth used to take care of it, but since Elizabeth's off for medical leave for the next couple of weeks, Diana is taking care of doing that part of the work. So I think she probably will have access to the YouTube channel, the BioCaddy's YouTube channel.
Do we want to send her an email to see if she has access, or?
Sure, I can do that. I'll CC you on it.
Okay. Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Maybe one thing that was also partly discussed at the meeting, and just also to see how it does impact the search interface on DataMed, is how what should be using for defining data types and how much work is still to be done, and maybe having more explanation on how the search engine work, or just to understand the kind of synonym search space that is explored by the search engine, so that we can make sure we annotate with a tag, maybe a mesh term or anything we come up with, but people would not be, in a way, it would not restrict the search over the DataMed to connect data based on their type.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this gets to sort of what we've been discussing in emails too, sort of the, further reviews of the model and stuff like that. So maybe, I mean, it sounds like more of like a working curation type meeting, right?
Yes, of course. But but the thing is, when I run the search on epilepsy, for instance, on DataMed, the system was already aware of the association between epilepsy and seizure, for instance. So it was hitting word like seizure in the search interface.
Yes.
So the idea is that, I wanted to know how this query expansion, or search expansion, is done, and how we can harness that mechanism to just, which we annotate with data type, and then we we have this knowledge of the relation between synonyms or related concepts.
Right. Yeah. So the search expansion right now is done via the ontologies that are pulled in, including mesh.
Right.
Which is slightly different than the curation question you had started with, but there is a sort of tie-in, and I think I put that in my email earlier today as well, was because at UT Health, the NLP sort of component will be integrated sometime over the next months, and that will then expand sort of information in the document. And so the question is, one of the questions I had, that I put in the email was, how do we mark sort of this additional information, right? So in the DAPS model, how does one support saying, okay, well, repositories supplied 1 through 10, but additional processing supplied 11 through 15?
Some provenance information, basically.
Yeah,
that
I
needs
don't need to specify that, but that really gets into this sort of.
I know Alejandra has been looking into getting some provenance information in. I would have to catch up with her on that topic and then get back to you.
Okay. Yeah. And the question that I have is if we want to sort of have sort of a working curation DATS or DATS, whatever we want to call it.
I think this is necessary, and somehow it also relates to some curation work that we've been doing on biosharing, and probably you've also been doing on the NIF store of resources, because we need to know what resources are about, and somehow this is a case and kind of conundrum that we are running into. So there are obviously a number of resources, EDAM or MeshTerm to start with, but how do we make sure that do we need to build our own specific application ontology for that very purpose to begin with, and then so that we have some kind of control over what goes in?
So for data type specifically, I know we didn't have a very good ontology to rely on. So I remember Charlene combined, I think, 2 different ontologies, right? Mm-hmm. One was EDAM and the other one I forget now.
That's great, but would it be possible to have the list of or the ontology that you have developed? So because that would be very helpful to know as a seeding material to see what can be expanded, or what are the things that you've used so far.
Right. I don't think that was put into whatever synonym expansions that we are doing or anything. This was just something that we used to tag repositories to say, okay, this repository has this data type. So it hasn't gone through any kind of formal curation process, which I think we probably need to go through it with some domain experts, etc.
No, I think that would be extremely useful for all groups here, and for biosharing, for instance, a continuation, because we could share exactly the same markup, which would make it a lot easier for the next rounds of selection and annotation. That's great.
All right.
Is this on GitHub somewhere, or?
Are the data types marked up in that spreadsheet or no? Did Stephanie annotate the different, like how she did for access and data format?
I need to double check.
So we'll double check and get back to you, Philippe, but right now we haven't put it up yet on GitHub. We just want to make sure it's completed, and then we'll put it up on GitHub.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Okay, so I guess that's it. Was there anything else that we want to talk about? Any other issues? Oh, also, just one quick question to Todd. So after we have this release, we want to do usability phase 2 first, right?
We had several in phase 1, like mini studies, and we
Right.
kind of kept that going. Then phase 2, we should be doing fairly soon. So we've talked about some questions for phase 2. Users who have been using the system. Now, we feel we want to wait and wait until additional users come on and then solicit them, that's fine. But the idea is after they've been using it for a while, we want to survey them.
Oh.
Kind of get a sense of, we planned on doing that with our early users. If we don't have enough, or we want to wait on that, we can do that. So we're flexible there. The last phase, though, is the sort of in the lab.
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
So that should wait. I think that should wait until we've kind of fixed a lot of the things that we need to fix, and we think we have something that is.
So that's kind of the phase 3, right?
Yeah, that's the phase 3. And that's meant to be summative, whereas everything else is formative. So I mean, we have flexibility.
So for phase 3, the kind of users that you want or you're looking for would still be naive users, or would they be users who know the system well?
Actually, it might be better for users who knows the system well along with another system. Remember, we held off what we're going to compare it to. It's not entirely clear yet, but it may just end up being whatever they end up using.
So we just give them a free hand and say compare it to whatever.
Well, we would like to have specific tasks, so users should be knowledgeable in those tasks. At the time being, we weren't sure what was going to be in BioCaddy, so it should be doable with both. Although we may have a task where it would be reasonable to have a task where maybe it's not in BioCaddy, right? Because then you're testing, well, how can they figure out that in fact it's not in there? They just keep going. How long do they pursue their search before they realize that it's not there?
Okay. So maybe we, I guess after version 1 release, we do one more phase 2 and then kind of start working on, making design of phase 3 much more in complete detail then. Okay. Because I'm just thinking, like, if you are recruiting users, even in the workshop, there were some people who were asking how they could participate in the usability study.
Okay.
So if we want to recruit users, I wonder if we should kind of figure out who we want to use for phase 2 and then also keep some people that we would like to use for phase 3 and decide,
Well, phase 2 is more open-ended. Phase 3, we should decide if we want experienced users or not. It would be very different results.
Okay. So maybe we could talk about that in the not too distant future then.
How are you planning on recruiting the?
Well, we left that open as well. We need to. With web technology now, we don't, when I say lab study, I mean, it's more of a controlled study. We could technically do it over the web using things like GoToMeeting, because you can still videotape that and then take times from there and analyze that video. So it could be that way, it could be in the lab. I think the most critical thing is that we'd like each person to have the same tasks, and then depending on what tasks those are, which should, I think, stem first from what are the kinds of tasks that we think are important for the system to support.
Right.
Versus, and how do they compare to what other systems are doing? Right, so some of that's functionality maybe, some of it, will cross functionality with usability. So if we pick a certain area, we should have individuals who are familiar with the data, or kinds of data, at least in that area.
So I wonder if we could go back to the original use cases that we were looking at To
Right.
decide what task we
What
want.
tasks, right? And then, and then in what area? What's specific? Because it shouldn't be, find a file that you're interested in for that kind of study. That's where phase 1 and phase 2 are okay, getting general feedback. But phase 3 should be some very specific question. And I know we have some sort of templates with specific questions, but it should be in something where we can get a group of subjects that have experience in that area. And it's a sort of set of tasks that makes sense.
Okay.
So, typically if we did something like when we did our infusion pump study, it was as if the nurse was taking care of a patient. So it was a whole scenario. It's a series of tasks, right? But it's a whole scenario logically based around taking care of a patient with a certain illness. Because that makes conceptual sense to the subject.
Okay, so then I guess it would be a good idea to start looking into the use cases, deciding the task and the scenario, and based on that recruit the users who would have the expertise in that specific area. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to close the loop more in terms of the usability feedback we've gotten with phase 2 feasibility, or phase 2 feedback with the actual user interface, which is why we'll meet after this meeting to start seeing if we can better close that loop, make sure we're addressing those issues.
Okay, so do we have anything else? That we need to talk about? If not, then that's it for today. Thanks everybody for calling in.
Okay, so in 2 days, DataMed goes live. Okay? All right. All of you need to, turn around and pat yourselves on the back, assuming it goes without any blow-ups.
Yeah,
But, thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.